Hi there, and welcome to this user guide for the PriceYourOwnBets.com cricket match winner and innings runs model we went down with yesterday. What you can see on the screen at the moment, as with all the other models, we have the inputs on the left hand side here, which we'll go over in a moment, and then some main markets and some summary information on the right hand side. There's also two other tabs that are visible at the start, which are the markets here. So this is just additional lines either side, and some three-way markets. And there's also a notes tab, which is just a very brief version of what I'm going to go over in this user guide. So back to the dashboard where most of the work happens. We'll just work our way down through these variables as we tend to do with all these models. So the first thing you choose is the number of overs in the match. So this is set for 20 overs. At the moment I've been looking at 20 over cricket more so than 50 over. I can get more information. I can obviously do a few games a day to try and calibrate these models. So bear in mind that the default variables here are probably better suited to 20 over cricket. If you want to use this for 50 overs, you might need to change some of these things, and once you've got a feel for them, hopefully you can get values that suit your own needs and what you think lead to good prices, and keep on top of the expected runs of the teams. So I'm going to leave this at 20 overs and use that for this guide here. The next thing is obviously you can put in the team names, so I'm just going to leave these alone in case I need to reset. I don't want the team names disappearing and then have to put them in again. But if you do put the team names here, they'll change in all the other places as well. This pricing, I'm only going to look at simple pricing in this first user guide, but just to let you know, there is a complex user guide which basically brings up this players tab as well, where you can put in information about the strengths of the players, but I'll get back to that in more detail later. So the last structure variable is who bats first. The match winner price is fine probably before you know who's first, but the way this model works is it really only gives the runs for the team that are batting at the moment. If the team that are batting second are chasing a very hard target, obviously the run bands will be still quite relevant, whereas if they're chasing a trivial, only got to get 80 or 100 runs or something, then the run lines won't be of much use to you. So the context there depends on how the game progresses, really. So we come to the trading variables. Well, the most important one is the runs expected, and that's basically how many runs you expect the team to get in the game if they were to bat first. So obviously if you put a team in for 160 and they bat second chasing 120, they're not going to get more than 125 or 126 or something like that. So I could just change this here. Perhaps I make this team A 160.5, probably fairly reasonable for a 20 over match, against team B 150.5. so straight away I get some different prices here. 63% around 1.6 against 37 at 2.72 in decimal odds. So that's really the most important thing. You can have your own feel for this, or you can calibrate this to the market and hopefully make your efforts in running count as you perhaps make the runs evolve better depending on the situation that comes to fruition. So you can go back to these throughout the game, change your opinion based on what you're observing. It's probably one of the sports where you really have to tinker with this a lot, cricket, simply because after a few overs, the pitch might be playing different than you expected, and it has a huge impact. A quick outfield might be worth 20 runs, and you don't really get that in something like football. A quick pitch or a wet pitch, it doesn't really do that much to what you thought to start with. So obviously that's quite important for cricket. So we move on then. We've got three kind of other variables here that hopefully can add some value and some sophistication if you can get a feel for them. So I've in the background of the model tried to get a good updating value for the volatility of the runs. So for example, I think it's around, for teams like this, it's a standard deviation of about 25 runs or 20 runs, something like that, which means that you'd expect a team to get within 40 or 50 of their target pretty much all the time. So you'd expect this team to get between 120 and 200, and this team to get between 110 and 190 as fairly standard. Well, if you think that a team is a volatile team. So you could have a 160 team here that can one day smash it out of the park and get 220, and another day they're rubbish and they get bowled out for 90 or something. This run dispersion can deal with this. So this is set to 100 at the moment, and you can basically set it less than 100. So 90% means that their runs are a bit less volatile than they were expected to be, or 120 or something. And this all has an impact on the price here to do with when the teams bat and so I'm not going to do too much exploration with that, just to say that, imagine that it just makes them more or less likely to get close to what you expect them to get. So we'll stick that back to 100. The late run surge, that's basically about will the team kind of, play defensively at the start, save wickets and really try and smash it out the park late on. So that's set to 1, which means that it's already kind of a bit beyond what I think the default is, or the natural rate is 0. So you can see a version of this if I just suppose I put a team the 10 overs in. Let's put them, let's put them on, say, 74 runs. It doesn't really matter too much this, and let's say that they have, sorry, I'm just going to change this back to simple like I said I would. So let's put them, say, 2 wickets down. So at the moment this says that 74 for 2 off 10 overs. They were supposed to get 160.5. Well, they're now at 162.9, this figure here. Well, if I put that late run surge, say, to 2, then the runs go up. So it just basically acknowledges that teams will score more late on. I can go a bit further with that, maybe to go to an extreme 4, and now they're in for quite a bit more runs than was just expected naturally. So this is something that I don't think it's the kind of thing you really want to be playing with too much during a match, but it's something that you might use your own expertise and knowledge of using this model repeatedly to get a feel for what you think that should be. You can do it for both teams independently, as you see here. So that's pretty much it for that actually at the moment. So I'll move on to bat second correlation. This is quite vital. Cricket was a funny one in that, we've already said that a team here, 160, they might get 200. So if they get 200 and this team are expected to get between 110 and 190, it should be virtually impossible for them to win. But of course the thing about cricket is you're batting second, you're going to try for it. So if you make the second innings hugely volatile, you still wouldn't get to a sensible price for this team having a chance of chasing down somewhere near 200. So what this bat second correlation does is it kind of overrides what the second team is in for, based on how the first team is doing and at the end of the innings how they've done. So if I put this team to the end of the innings is an easy way to illustrate this. So I put them to 20 overs. So let's say they've done bad, they only got 132. So they've clearly underperformed. So it's actually dragged the other team's basis down here from 150 runs to 142. And so it gives Team A still some chance of winning this game. Whereas, if we didn't have the late surge, or sorry, the bat second correlation, that's probably a bit too long a price in this situation. There's a chance of this occurring. So this probably is observed better when they get a big score. So let's do, like I said, let's put them in, they got 195, and I'll put it without this. So if they got 195 and the other team are only expected to get 150, here's the price. You look, it's 60s against 1.02 or 98% against 2%, which anyone watching cricket knows that that there is a chance that this team, it's a good day for them. They don't lose wickets. They hit the ball. They get ahead of the game, and there's a chance that they can win. So by putting this to 3, it says now that actually they're kind of now going to get 160 rather than 150. So it's always moving this number towards the difference between how the first team did. This kind of makes sense as well, just from a observational perspective, because if you thought a team was supposed to get 160 and it got 200, sure, they might have got lucky on that day, or it could just be that you kind of underestimated your expected runs for them, and so it could have been actually they were supposed to get 170 and they overperformed by 30, or they were supposed to get 180 and overperformed by 20. So this here, it's the percentage that the other team overachieve that you add to the other team. So here they were about 35 runs ahead, so you get about 30% of 35 and you're getting about 10 runs. So always think of that in those terms. You can go more extreme. You could say, look, I'm going to give them 50% of the difference of how the other team did. So now it's at 167 and now they're at about 9.2. The 3 gave us 17.5 and the 0 gave us 60 for the odds here for this team to win. So I've set the default to 3 for the games I've seen. For some games I've needed to go up to 5 actually, which seems quite incredible. So it's just one to play with basically. The last thing I'll do in this first part of the user guide is I'll just go through the state of play variables here. It's all fairly self-explanatory. You've got overs, balls, runs and wickets. They all work quite standard. So here, the team, they were off 20 overs, so the innings is over. They got 195 runs and they lost 2 wickets. So the next team will start their innings, and so the first ball, it goes for 4. So you go 1 ball, 4 runs, and it wasn't a wicket. And so now the prices have changed a little bit because this team have they've started well. They've got a 4. If they'd got a 0 here, the 108 goes to 106. If they've lost a wicket, which is really bad, say clean bowled on the first ball, then that really was even worse. That brings their runs right back down here, which has an impact on the match winner. The last thing you can do is let's put this team now 10 overs in and 1 ball. We can leave the ball there, and they're on 60 runs and they're 2 down. Well, the tables in the background, they work on each number of wickets as to how many runs are remaining. And so what you have here is 2 wickets might not always be 2 wickets. You might have lost your best 2 players. It's all about the openers for this team. And so you can adjust this and you can actually say they're kind of like 2.3 down. They're in a worse situation than 2. It's as if they're 2.3 or 2.6 down. And so this just has an impact on their runs and on the price here. So they're 146.3 at 0.6. Just with a 2, they're back at 148. And you can also go the other way. You could be, look, they're 2 big guys at the top. Sorry, 2 guys. They're not that good at all, and the 3 and 4 are the guys you wanted in anyway. So I'm actually going to put them. It's only as if they've lost 1.6 wickets. So this is a nice way to just slightly amend based on how you think the state of the team, because the tables in the background are just based on all players, all teams being the same. But as we know, some teams cram the middle order, some team bat right down to 10 or 11, so at 6 or 7 down it might be as if they're only 5 down. So that just lets you use your knowledge of the team that's playing at that time to basically improve the runs expected here, which is what drives everything. So I'm going to leave part 1 there, and I'll pick this up looking at the this adjustment here and choosing a line and having a look at the markets in more detail in the second part. So thanks very much for listening, and hopefully you'll come back for part 2 and see some of the flexibility in the markets and other sections of this model.